The story of Totorz, the Mountain Man. In January of the year 1985, on a side of the Berenberg mountain, a child was born. The child wandered to a meteorological station, where the surprised Norwegian researchers took care of the child. The child was incredibly odd, though, because while seeming like he was only weeks old, he said his first words, which were right after meeting the researchers. The only thing the child said was Totorz. At first, the researchers thought that was the name of one of the child's parents, but they really weren't sure what was exactly going on with this baby. They named him Totorz, since that's the only thing the kid would say. Immediately, a transport was arranged to get the kid to the mainland of Norway. Upon arriving at Bergen, Totorz was taken to an orphanage where he stayed for the next 7 years. Totorz was extremely smart and a very fast learner, as he mastered the Norwegian language by the time he was 7. At 8 he learned English, and at 11 he was doing complex math. Later, at 14, he was doing quantum mechanics. Totorz never really socialized with anybody unless having to answer somebody's question. Even though he was a genius, he didn't participate in any kind of public events or anything of the sort, because he liked keeping to himself and generally disliked anything by which he could be exposed to many people. When he finally turned 18 years old and was free to leave from the orphanage, he set out on a journey. The journey started by him coming to the Bergen port and taking a nosedive in the water, and nobody saw where he went. Totorz had disappeared. Weeks passed and someone spotted somebody walking out of the water near the island of Svalbard. The person went onto the coast and then ran through the snow naked until they could no longer be seen. Quite a crazy thing to see. The years kept passing with not too much going on in the world, until near the end of 2016, a group of crazy Chinese gang members infiltrated China's nuclear arsenal and disabled it for a while. At the start of 2017, an international incident happened where it seemed as if America launched a sneak attack on Japan, China, and other Asian nations. The USA tried to both cover up their experiments with new technology and explain that it was an accident that nuclear warheads and torpedoes were fired at very populated areas in many of the nations, inflicting huge economic damage along with massive casualties. The more the United States tried to calm down the situation, the worse it got. Soon, Russia got involved too, and the international tension snapped when the Chinese government broke off their deals with the United States. That's when the war started between the Chinese alliance and NATO. It seemed that World War III had just begun, and fighting was happening all around the world, on the eastern fronts of Europe, the Pacific Ocean, and so on. Russia was making headway into Europe while the US Navy was progressing steadily towards the coast of China, but was being held off in the distant waters of Japan. A sort of base of Navy units was stationed near the Mariana Trench. Attacks there seemed to be increasing in force, with 3 submarine attacks that happened over the course of about 3 months. One of the submarines were captured during the third, much stronger attack, and it was discovered that odd creatures were actually the ones behind the submarine attacks. The Chinese kept this to themselves as much as they could, but when the creatures attacked again, they attacked in force, and could not be ignored. The world came together against the new threat, and nuked the ocean from where the subs were coming from. The Psari, as the creatures are called, ravaged the human world in the months to come after their armed attack. They took over many coastlines, islands, etc. Terror amidst the human race was widespread, not only because of this global war, but too because of the terrifying experiences from Psari land attacks, which if not kept at bay by the use of land warfare would quickly kill humans and disassemble human buildings and build their own structures and bases. Through all of this, no real communication was achieved between the two species, since the Psari didn't want to talk to the humans, but neither did they have any way to understand each other without cooperation with the other, since both species have vastly different languages that would be hard to understand from both sides if they were cooperating. The Psari advances after a year of warfare caused widespread famine and suffering, along with the Psari taking over a lot of the coastlines of Japan, China, America, and other coastal nations near the Pacific Ocean. After another year, now in 2019, the Psari advances were getting through to the mainland of China, India, and other nations, and the future was looking bleak. In the meantime, in the years leading up to 2008, Totorz, who disappeared for a long time, was actually spending his time on Svalbard interacting with polar bears. He made a community out of the polar bears and knew how to communicate to them in the same way humans do between each other. After being there for so long, he helped increase the population of the polar bears to 50,000. After which, he and the bears had a mass migration to Norway, where they went into a cave system hundreds of kilometers long, where they staged the first stage of what Totorz called the rapid evolution. He taught the bears mathematics, physics, biology, and many other things. Totorz made the polar bears equipment especially made for them, so that they could do their own research and projects. Turns out that polar bears are natural scientists, and using the internet and minerals in and outside the caves, they made cloaking devices, custom-made rifles and armor, hollow projections that could be seen without special glasses. And the newer generations of polar bears, born under the tutoring from Totorz, were already devising crazy inventions. All of this was going smoothly, and when Totorz saw the progress the Psari had made in taking over the world by 2019, he decided now, with his 150,000 polar bears, he was going to liberate the world from both humans and Psari. He started the Jan Mayen nation. At first, they invaded Norway and Sweden, taking them over swiftly with covert operations, with the cloaking technology they had. Next, they took over Finland, and all of this took them only a week, without much bloodshed. Seeing as the Psari are in many numbers, but not knowing exactly what they are facing, the polar bear scientists made little drones that went underwater to where the Psari were rumored to live, and found out much about the Psari culture and its traditions. Totorz and his polar bears quickly were siphoning the countries of Europe with cloaked bears with rifles, easily taking out resistance. Totorz and the bears invented a translator with which they could communicate with the Psari. They also made more of the little spy drones, just so this time they could be set to explode in most of the Psari cities in case that they did not comply with the Jan Mayen conditions of surrender. The same ultimatum was offered to the human race on a peace conference in Rome. The condition for both sides was for the conflict to end between both the civilizations, and for them to capitulate all of their land and institutional power over to the Jan Mayen nation, or both civilizations were to be eradicated. With no real alternative, the Psari and the humans agreed. That was the start of the Jan Mayen conglomerate of polar bears, humans, and Psari. In the years following the peace, Totorz built himself a high mountain from which to rule from right in the center of Europe. The mountain was 5 kilometers high, where he lived with his most trusted friends from all of the 3 races. There, he built himself a golden throne to sit on when addressing the Jan Mayen nation, with his first announcement being that the conglomerate of polar bears, humans, and Psari was going to become an interstellar empire. And that was the story of Totorz, the Mountain Man.